Gary Patterson is not using USC. Sorry. Gary Patterson is not just USC's defensive coordinator. He may be Lincoln Riley's last alibi. No, I'm not saying one ugly September loss automatically gets Riley fired or anything like that. The argument is that USC has now addressed almost every issue, excuse, whatever you want to call it, that's been attached to the program. They have more talent, more experience, better depth, a proven defensive teacher, and a special teams coach with a record of fixing broken units. So on this episode of the Big Ten Huddle, I want to show you why Patterson changes the standard of USC, what he can realistically repair, and what becomes impossible to ignore. If the Trojans still cannot win the games that matter, it's going to matter. Here's what has changed. All right, USC is coming off a 9-4 season, 7-2 record in Big Ten play. It's not a disaster. They probably should have been considered for the playoffs more, but entering year 5 under Lincoln Riley, not a disaster is not the goal, right? The Trojans can score. They return an older roster. Another talented freshman class is arriving. Now, Patterson takes over the defense while Mike Eckler arrives to address special teams. That matters because USC's biggest problem was never a shortage of highlight players. The problem was that the team often treated championship necessities like optional deals or details, right? Tackling, run fits, gap control, situational discipline, finishing games on the road. Those things were not necessarily ingrained in the program. Those things decide whether a talented team goes 10-2 and spends December against playoff teams, or 8-4 and go into a bowl game that players are going to be opting out of. Let's just be honest. And the Illinois loss last year captured it. USC had enough offense to win. What it lacked was a defense capable of closing the deal. Illinois leaned on the running game during the decisive possession and moved into position for the winning kick. That was more than just one bad drive. It reflected USC's identity, and it's what we've seen from USC late in games, not being able to stop the run too often now under Lincoln Riley. And it's why Patterson is more than just another coordinator hire. All right? Stop treating Gary Patterson like he's simply the next man asked to rescue Lincoln Riley's defense. This hire is different because Patterson is not arriving to invent credibility. He built his reputation teaching defensive structures, developing players, and helping shape the modern 4-2-5 defense. USC does not need magic. It needs dependable football. Fit the run, tackle in space, disguise coverage, and stop giving good offenses easy answers. If Patterson does that and USC still cannot break through, the conversation changes. The problem is no longer who coordinates the defense. The problem is the program Riley has built is not built for a defense. That is the pressure hidden inside this hire of Gary Patterson. Patterson does not need to build the best defense in America. Expecting a top 5 or a top 10 unit immediately would be a little unfair, right? A realistic goal is something around top 25, top 30, good enough to stop bleeding possessions and force opponents to earn their points and get USC as a real playoff contender at the very least, or better yet, just make the playoffs. Think of USC kind of like a sports car with unreliable brakes, right? Riley has spent years upgrading the engine, more speed, more weapons, more passing concepts. Patterson's job is to make sure the car that is faster can also stop. His job is to make sure it survives the turns, right? The 4-2-5 defense can give offenses complicated pictures while keeping speed on the field. When taught correctly, it creates clearer run responsibilities, distinguishes coverages, and allows pressure to come from different locations. That flexibility matters in today's modern Big Ten. USC must face Oregon's talent, Ohio State's weapons, Indiana's discipline, physical road games, and mobile quarterbacks. A defense built to stop only one kind of offense will definitely get exposed. But Patterson cannot answer one question by himself. The question here is USC strong enough through the middle? Right? The defensive line gives him real talent to build around. Linebackers and safeties are where opponents will test the Trojans the most. A great design puts players in better possessions. It cannot transform every player overnight. So watch what happens after motion. Watch whether the second level fills the correct gap. Watch whether one missed tackle becomes an 8-yard gain instead of a 60-yard touchdown. That happened for Ohio State after a couple of their defensive years when Jim Knowles got in there and was looking better, and Matt Patricia really solidified it this last season for them. The build was real. Those details separate a respectable defense from another season of chaos. And this changes more than USC. It changes the top of the conference as well. USC does not need an elite defense to become a playoff threat. That is the hidden blueprint in this. The offense already has enough at quarterback, running back, and receiver stress almost everybody every single year because Lincoln Riley is a master at getting good receivers. Terrell Anderson and Tanu Hines are going to be fine this year. If Patterson turns the defense into a weekly liability, from a weekly liability into a top 30 unit, USC can steal possessions instead of giving them away. One extra third down stop against Oregon, one forced field goal against extra field goal forced against Ohio State, one clean fourth quarter at Penn State or Wisconsin, and that's how a 9-4 team becomes a 10-2 team, not through a total transformation, but through 4 or 5 different snaps that finally goes USC's way. That is why Oregon and Ohio State coming to Los Angeles matters. USC does not have to dominate both those games. It has to prove that its best football can survive against those opponents. The schedule gives Patterson almost no hiding place. USC travels to travels to Rutgers, Penn State, Wisconsin, Indiana, and UCLA. Washington and Maryland can punish a team that relaxes. Two buys help, but they also remove excuses about preparation. Special teams matters here too. Mike Eckler's job may be nearly as important as Patterson's job. Defensive mistakes and special teams mistakes have repeatedly placed USC's offense in difficult situations. Better coverage, cleaner returns, and dependable kicking can flip field position without appearing in an offensive highlight reel, right? Now, bring it back to Riley, because Jada Maiava should be more comfortable in another year of the offense. The running backs have explosive potential in King Miller and Wayman Jordan. The receivers are young, not necessarily just young, but, have not been there, but dangerous, right? Tanu Hines, Terrell Anderson, dangerous players. Mark Bowman could become a difference maker at tight end, possibly coming in as a very highly touted recruit. The offensive line still has some questions, but you're returning all of your starting offensive linemen, so you at least have experience there. So what excuses remain, right? Quarterback play should not be the issue. Skill talent is not an issue. Your offensive line has experience. You cannot fall back on that. And I'm not saying Riley would. I'm just saying that can't be an excuse. Or an issue. Patterson removes the lack of a proven defense architect. Eckler was hired to fix special teams and fix the linebackers. The roster is getting deeper. If USC finishes 8-4 because the defense is still getting pushed around, Lincoln Riley's championship window is not open. It's closing. That does not mean USC must win the national championship. It means the Trojans can no longer lose because they cannot tackle, they cannot stop the run, or they don't look, or they look unprepared away from home. Gary Patterson is the test. If a proven defensive teacher, an owner roster, and an upgraded staff still cannot produce a complete team, USC must answer a harder question. Is Lincoln Riley building a championship program or just another talented offense? Here's my standard for calling this hire a success or not, right? First, the run game must clearly improve. The run defense must clearly improve. Handing the ball off against USC teams cannot remain the easiest answer on an opponent's play sheet. Second, the embarrassing road collapse must disappear. USC cannot lose a difficult road game. USC can lose a difficult road game. It cannot look undisciplined and physically unprepared. Third, USC needs one result that changes how the country sees it. Beat Oregon, beat Ohio State, win a major road game, right? Reach the Big Ten championship, make the playoffs, something in there. Give people evidence that this is no longer the same Riley era of USC, that things have changed and that this team means business. 9 wins with structural progression keeps the conversation alive. 10 wins probably places USC in the playoff discussion, but another season where the offense looks dangerous and the defense looks helpless would prove the coordinator was never the entire problem. That is the payoff. Gary Patterson is Lincoln Riley's last chance. Not because Patterson controls Lincoln Riley's job, but because his arrival removes the cleanest explanation for USC's failures. If the defense becomes competent, USC can compete in the Big Ten, can compete for a Big Ten title, and can be a true threat, dangerous threat for the national championship. USC is right now 4th in Big Ten odds on FanDuel, or odds to win the Big Ten championship on FanDuel. If it does not, USC has to stop changing coordinators and start questioning the person choosing them. So is Gary Patterson the missing piece, or is USC about to learn that its problem runs much deeper than just their defense? Drop your prediction in the comments. Would love to hear from you, and subscribe to the Big Ten Huddle for more Big Ten football and basketball analysis, and we'll see you next time.